Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It's 6 o'clock here in the morning, Wednesday morning, June the 9th. I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for half an hour. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And I'm happy to be able to do these shows while I can. And I'm just grateful for all the people that are tuning in and, catching my archives and stuff. I really appreciate it. And I just hope everybody's well and taking care of themselves. And so we're going to continue on today looking at the coping lists that I found off of Michael C. Irving's his website there, Irving Studios. And these are some awesome coping lists, and I hope everybody will go check out the website. http://www.irvingstudios.com/ excuse me, child_abuse_survivor_monument, and then /coping lists .htm. And you can just find it actually by just typing in Michael C. Irving or Irving Studios or Child Abuse Survivor Monument. It'll bring you right to the website. And there's some great information on there for adult survivors of child abuse or anyone who has survived child abuse. That is a great website, and I hope everybody will check it out. It's a real true monument to survivors of child abuse. And Michael C. Irving he's a psychotherapist and a sculptor, and he's also a survivor himself. So he knows firsthand what it's like to be abused as a child, and then he went on to be a psychotherapist to try to help people to get, to be able to live a full and happy and peaceful life, and so I think that's just so awesome, and I wish everybody would go and check out the website. And so we're going to continue on, looking at these coping lists, and they're just awesome. It's called Create and Use Personalized Coping Lists, and we went through all the stuff like the daily activities, take care of yourself and stay healthy list, what to do to create boundaries, what to do to relieve stress, and now we're looking at how to cope with crisis, and also the physical grounding and cognitive grounding and grounding through breathing. So we're going to look at grounding today. And then also boundaries. Depending on how much time we have, there's a whole section on boundaries. Abuse destroys boundaries, and then it goes on to talk about identifying boundaries, creating cognitive boundaries, right? It's just really good information for anyone who has a hard time and is still having a hard time coping. I think these lists are very important for all of us to have, and even if we didn't survive, even if you were not abused as a child, people have a hard time coping in this world. This world throws some major curveballs at people, and just regular normal life experiences can be overwhelming sometimes when too many things happening at once, and maybe there's some health problems, and then you throw in a job loss, and then people start having a hard time coping. And so coping lists are good for everybody, I think, and that's why I hope everybody will get something out of this. And I know, like myself, when I first saw this, this has been months and months ago. I wanted to create my own coping list, and I haven't done it yet because I'm just busy, just doing my daily routine and busy working and whatnot. But I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to follow some of the advice here on these coping lists and create my own coping lists that I can refer back to when I'm having a hard time, because it's just so important, right? We all know that life can go along pretty smoothly for a while, and then all of a sudden something happens that just causes us to kind of go into a mode of either panic or a little bit of, worry and stress overload might take over, right? And if we have our coping lists of what works to help us relax and stay calm and focused, it's just a good idea, right? So that's why I'm going to do this myself. And I just haven't gotten around to it, but I'm going to. And that's something I'm going to work on this summer, as well as the Survivor to Thriver workbook that's found on the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, the ASCA website, a Morris Center program. So that's a really awesome workbook, and I hope everybody will check that out as well. I've done actually weeks and weeks worth of shows on that. So, there's some stuff I want to do this summer, and I think it's just really important for all of us, right, to have a coping list and to know what helps us to stay focused and grounded. And that way, when we run into a problem, we can just refer to our list and go through it and find stuff that actually helps and works, right? So, it's not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates or therapist certificates. I'm just a person who does, I pay to do my own blog talk shows because I wanted to be one more voice out there, first of all, to say that we need to stop child abuse. And I also wanted to be on the other side of it and talk with people about adult survivor issues of child abuse, as I'm a survivor myself. And so I thought, there's 1 out of 3 girls, 1 out of 6 boys. That's the statistics, right? Will have been abused sexually or experienced unwanted sexual touching under the age of 18, and that's pretty much the stats for physical abuse, psychological abuse, emotional, verbal abuse, you name it. That's the stats. And so there's lots and lots of stuff. So sad, horrible. Too many survivors of child abuse out there. And I just wanted to be one more voice just to show, to help people to see that there is hope, and that there's things that we can do to help ourselves, and not give up and just keep walking forward, right? And so that's why I'm doing this show, and just to be a bit of a support, for anyone who's suffering or has had to deal with these type of things, right? And bring out information to people that I find, because I study continually, and I'm researching all the time. So that's the whole issue. I've run into some of this stuff, and I just want to share it with people because I think it's very valuable and very much information that people should have. So I'm always appreciative of resources and references and stuff like that myself. So that's the whole issue, right? And, if you're a young person under the age of 18, this show is ultimately about, child abuse and stopping child abuse and whatnot, but there's a lot of adult content on here, and I would hope that you would have a parent okay it, that you can listen to it. There's a lot of crazy people out there doing a lot of crazy things to children. That's why I'm standing up for children, standing up for child rights, and advocating on behalf of children. So I just think every child should to have someone look in at what they're doing online and make sure that they're safe, right? Because that's the whole issue. There's too many children that are being, assaulted by child sexual predators or, contacted by these child sexual predators and whatnot. And I think your parents really, or caregivers, or somebody in your life who cares should know what you're doing online just to keep you safe and try to give you some pointers and tips on how to stay safe, and a lot of parents don't know that information. You can get that information just by typing into your browser, internet safety for children, online child safety, anything like that, right? We'll bring you up to some good websites with all kinds of good information on there on how to keep yourself safe online. So that's why I say this on every single show, because I think it's so important. And I don't know where the Blog Talk players are nowadays, right? They could be on any website. So that's why I don't know how young people are who are listening to this show. And that's why I always tell people, young people especially, to get permission to listen to my shows, right? Because I would appreciate it. It holds everybody accountable, and it makes I stand up and fight for truth in every instance. And so that's why, I just think that everybody deserves to know the truth and deserves to be allowed to know the truth. And so, it's a scary world out there, and you do want to protect yourself and your family and your friends. So if you're a young person, you want to listen to what I'm saying, and get some information and get the facts out there and see what's going on and learn how to protect yourself, right? Because even when we know how to protect ourselves, we're still at risk. But the whole issue is the more education you have, the better off you're going to be. And, really, honestly, there's people working around the clock to try to get more education out there for children, right, regarding internet safety. So that's why I keep talking about it on every show. So we have about 20 minutes left, and we'll continue on with this coping list here. I wanted to look at physical grounding. Yesterday we were going over visual grounding. We went through the list of make yourself a list of what to do in a crisis, which was just awesome. It's a good list for people who who experience maybe flashbacks or whatnot, or they just start to feel like they're in crisis mode. And there's all kinds of stuff we can do to try to help ourselves get through that. So we talked about that yesterday, visual grounding. And physical grounding I wanted to look at, it says, while standing or sitting down, feel the floor supporting your entire body. So you feel the floor while you're standing or sitting down. Lay down and feel the surface of your back on the floor. This is to get a physical sense of where you are and to get your focus back, right? It says try walking around the room, paying attention to how your feet make contact with the ground. And stretch and roll your head and neck, stretch your whole body. That's to feel where you are in the physical world, right? During a flashback, it says stamp feet while walking, keep head upright. So you can stamp your feet while you're walking and keep your head upright if you're having a flashback, because that brings you back to the present, right? It says make noise or sounds that ground you and give you energy and alertness, and make physical contact with a safe person or object. It says give yourself a hug, which, not hardly nobody ever gives themselves a hug, you know what I mean? And once in a while, unless they're reminded to do so, right? It's, yeah, hug yourself, you know what I mean? We do deserve a hug, really, honestly. If you've survived child abuse, that's the whole issue, right? And so we have to be good to ourselves. We have to be kind to ourselves, right? So that's the whole issue. Sit with both feet on the floor, legs uncrossed. And then it says, hold your posture upright, hold your own hand, and hold on to a meaningful object. And, I've actually done that as far as holding my own hand goes, because I've spent years sort of on my own periodically throughout my adult life, especially after the age of 30. And, there'd be times when I really just did not have even one friend I could call. And one person in my life that would really care. And people would say, well, how could that happen? But it can happen, you know what I mean? There's lots of people who are really isolated. I live in a city of 1 million people, and I'm completely isolated. And it's sad, right, that people don't have, a lot of friends or family around. And I have some family around, but, they're not necessarily supportive, right? So that's the whole issue. They're in my life. But as far as supporting me through these horrible feelings that I experienced, from growing up in an abusive home, my family, a lot of them are living in denial and don't remember what happened, or conveniently only remember parts of it, don't necessarily want to talk about it because they think that it was okay to have our parents do what they did to us, right? And that's the whole issue. So, there's no support there, right? We're very dysfunctional, and most of the family members just want to move on with their lives and don't even want contact with each other, right? So this is the thing. There's not very many of us left. So it's really sad, you know what I mean? So, when I was having a lot of flashbacks and a lot of intrusive memories coming back, which was important because I needed to see this stuff, and I wanted to write it down. And I wanted, actually, was on purpose looking at it, right, allowing it to come to the surface. But there was a few nights where it was pretty hairy, and I was pretty upset and just having a real hard time coping. And I thought, well, I'll just hold my own hand. If nobody's here to hold my hand, I'll just hold my own hand, because I was just looking for that support, right? And so that's the whole issue, right? We can do things like that to try to help get us through if we're just not being able to be grounded and we're out of focus and we're feeling, in a crisis mode. It's very important to get your grounding, right? And then it talks about cognitive grounding. It says, tell yourself reassuring thoughts, such as, you are an adult now, and you are safe. People care about you and do not abuse you now. This flashback is just a memory in your mind. You have strengths and resources that you can use. That's something that we can tell ourselves, right? If you have flashbacks and whatnot, that, we're safe now. People care about us, and they don't abuse us now. And flashbacks are just a memory in our mind, and we have the strengths and resources that we can use, right? So that's really something that is so important to remember, right? We survived the abuse. I've seen this on quite a few survivor websites. We survived the worst of it, it says, and now we just have to really pat ourselves on the back and just continue moving forward at our own pace in our healing journey, right? So that's the whole issue. And so that's why it's so important that you don't become re-victimized, right? I do a lot of studies on re-victimization because, it's so easy for someone to be victimized once, but, then you don't want to be victimized again, right? That's the whole issue. And it's so easy for survivors of child abuse or domestic violence to actually become re-victimized, right? Because we don't understand the boundaries a lot of times. If you didn't grow up in a home where there were any boundaries or any sort of set directives, you know what I mean? You have to learn how to do that as an adult, right? And so you have to learn what boundaries are and how to have boundaries, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in your life, and what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate from people, and whether you're going to put up with abuse again or not. That's the whole issue, right? So we cannot afford to be. I feel so bad for people who become re-victimized, because it's like then their whole life is just spent being victimized over and over again. My mom was one of those people, right? She was brought up in a home that was very abusive. It went on to a marriage that was abusive, and she was not in a happy marriage. My parents fought like pretty much the whole entire time that they were married for many, 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 many years. And she never ever found any peace, in her heart, right? She never found any peace. She felt very unloved and unwanted. And really, to be honest, she wasn't wanted in her own home. Her parents were miserable. And then my dad was very miserable. My dad treated her very badly. And he wore her down psychologically, to the point where she pretty much almost lost her mind. You know what I mean? And he just wore at her and wore at her, and he just tore her down, physically and mentally as well. You know, he took away everything that she might have had, having a family and having children and whatnot, and he just ruined it for her. And so we're all left, to pick up the pieces, right? And he's still living, she's not. So she's gone on to have her peace now, but she was never on peace in peace on this planet. She had a few, years where she had some friends and whatnot, and friends of the family who really were there to try to help her out, and that did bring her some love and some light into her heart. But in the end, she was just still the same wounded person that she was probably when she was a child, and her whole entire time she was married. So that's the whole issue, right? You don't want to live a life like that. I saw a first-hand example of what people do to themselves by allowing other people to treat them a certain way. Now, me, on the other hand, I would like to think that I would have divorced my dad. If I was my mom, we all told her to leave my dad. We specifically, all the siblings, I'm sure every single one of us, because I remember quite a few conversations with the older siblings and myself telling my mom that she should leave my dad. And she would not do it. She could not see any other way around the whole thing. So she stayed in that marriage, and we told her not to. We knew she was just being destroyed, And, today my dad says he loves her very much, but of course that's because she's dead, and he's 87 years old, and he doesn't remember half of what he did anyway. So that's the whole issue, so that's what we have to deal with. And that's how, a lot of survivors of child abuse, and domestic violence, if you've been there, this sort of thing can happen. Where the abuser is still living, and they don't recall what they did, and they think that they were just the perfect husband or the perfect dad or whatever. My dad's 87. I guess I should just let him keep those false memories, because those are false memories that he's got. He thinks he was just wonderful to his wife, and that's just great. But, I've got 3 brothers lying in a grave who would really probably have something different to say about it if they could be here today. And one of my brothers, is living, and he doesn't have anything to say, period. And another sister of mine pretty much wants to stay neutral. She doesn't want to, she's just in denial. She doesn't want to be on one side of the fence or the other on any subject. So I'm really the only one speaking out about this stuff, you know what I mean? But it's because I watched my mom suffer her whole entire life. And of course, she gave it back to my dad just as well. Like, she made his life miserable. But the thing, and I was always on her side, because I thought, he deserves it, because he was just a miserable person. He would call her names, and he would berate her in front of the children. He called her, he said that she was sleeping around. So quite often throughout the week, at least once or twice a week, especially on Sunday, he would call her names, that she was a whore and she was sleeping around with everybody. None of us were his kids. And we would have to listen to this like pretty much at least once a week or even twice a week. And my mom would have to listen to it too. And after about, 10, 15, 20 years of that, it would drive you absolutely crazy. Because my dad is borderline schizophrenic, so he is borderline mentally ill, crazy, see. So my mom should have left him, and got away from him. She could have had a chance at a good life, right? And so that's why I hope that none of us will allow ourselves to be re-victimized. If you were brought up abused as a child, you need to go on to find supportive and good people in your life, and do not associate with people who would abuse you or who are not there for you and who do not care about you and who are going to hurt you again. Because just because we were abused as children does not mean that we deserve to go on to be abused the rest of our lives. I put my foot down. I said never again. I don't care what relationship it is, and I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's a boss or I don't care. I'd rather be on the street than put up with abuse from a boss. I refuse to put up with anybody who's going to try to put abuse on me. It's not going to happen, because I will not be re-victimized. I will be treated with respect. And so if you have to demand and command respect, right? In doing so, you have to give respect. So, you can't expect people to respect you if you don't respect them. And if you treat them badly, well, then you really can't expect people to respect you. That's the whole issue. There's 2 sides of the coin, and if I treat people with respect and I regard what they say, and I take my relationships with people very seriously. And so when people come across as they're being abusive in any manner, I just lay it out right in front of them. I just won't take any garbage off of anybody, because I've already had enough, and I'm just tired of it. And I saw a whole lifetime of it with my parents, and I just refuse to take any more, and I hope that other people will seriously think about the boundaries in their lives, you know what I mean, and set these boundaries and set these rules for, that you do not want people to abuse you, because if you've been abused as a child, you don't want friends in your life who are going to abuse you. Why would you want that? Or a relationship with someone, right? Any relationship, I don't care what it is, whether it's a family member, another family member, or a boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, husband, wife, doesn't matter. People need to start treating each other better, you know what I mean? And we have to hold people accountable. That's the whole issue. If people are going to be like that, they don't have any room in my life, right? Because I'm not going to abuse them. So I would hope that, the minute they start doing something that's abusive to me, I'm just shutting them out, right, completely. So that's the whole issue. So we'll continue on with this look at the grounding, cognitive grounding. It says here, have your adult self reassure and protect your inner child. So we can talk to our inner child, right, and reassure ourselves and just provide that comfort, that inner child never got, right? That's so important. It says remind yourself where you are. If you're having like a hard time focusing and you feel like you're just not grounded and everything is just out of focus and things are happening too fast and it starts to become just too much, it's almost like a crisis, right? It says you can do things like notice what you're wearing, reality check, focus on objects in your surroundings, name them one at a time. Like for instance, the TV, movies, blanket, you know what I mean, books, pillow. Just look around your room and start naming stuff. It helps bring you back to the present, to the here and now, right? And then it says here, write reassuring thoughts and affirmations on index cards and keep them handy. I think that's a good idea. We really have to. A lot of people think that that's just so, silly or something. To do stuff like that, putting positive thoughts down or affirmations on and keeping them around us. It's so important to surround yourself with kind words, comforting words, because if you grew up in in a violent home, doesn't matter what kind of violence, any kind of violence, or it's domestic violence or whatever, that's a very hard way to grow up. It's a very abrasive way to grow up. You're not hearing a lot of soothing, comforting words, or that life is good. Generally, it would be the opposite of that, and that's why it's so important to surround yourself as an adult with good stuff, right? And that's what I did. I made the choice. I made the change, and it took me a long time. It wasn't overnight, but I started weeding out of my life what was really negative, and started putting in stuff that I really like, So a lot of my music had to change. A lot of my movie preferences had to change. Because I started to realize that, a lot of the negativity I was keeping around in my heart really was showing up around me in the world I was living in. You know what I mean? As a young person, I was doing a lot of drugs and just living kind of dangerously, you know what I mean? Not really caring whether I lived or died and sort of thing. And that was just a reflection of what was going on in my life, my home life and my heart and everything else, right? Then I got rid of that and I stopped doing drugs. I started wanting to have a normal life, but I still had a lot of negativity and a lot of anger issues, and a lot of problems trying to manage. And so, I didn't necessarily weed out negative stuff in my life. And although I wasn't using any drugs or anything like that, I was still very much a negative person. And then I started to think, man, I don't want to live the rest of my life like that either. I want to, life can be good and we need to focus on that. And I also started to do a lot of self-help stuff like reading magazines and checking out things like other survivor stories and just looking at, people in the world that have done so many awesome things and they really didn't have much to go with, but they did it anyway. And started really realizing that it's up to us really to make the life that we want. You have to create your own adult life. No one else is going to do it. And as a child, you're subjected to whatever you're subjected to. And this is the unfortunate thing, is that children don't have any protection or rights. Pretty much, well, they do, but they're not upheld. And so this is the whole issue, right? And if your parents did not provide a great, a nice, safe environment, and a great childhood that was just full of love and laughter and light and goodness, and they wanted the best for you, sort of thing, which just didn't happen in my case, and so many other cases too. That's just not the case, right? And so, then we have to do that ourselves. We have to do that for ourselves. We basically have to become the parents that we wanted to have in the first place. You know what I mean? Because nobody else is going to do it. There's not anybody that's going to step up and say, I'll do it. People just don't think that far ahead. You know what I mean? They don't think about other people as much as they probably should. You know what I mean? It's like I try to do my best to be there for people. I know I probably don't do a good enough job, and but for ourselves, we really have to do that because no one else is going to step in and do it. And so, we have to almost really become our parents that we should have had. The nurturing parents, the kind parents, the parents who wanted the best for us, the parents who protected us, the parents who told us nice things and made us feel really special. The parents who did not hurt us and were very good to us, and the parents who didn't think about just themselves only, but put their children first and made a nice family life for ourselves. See, so we have to become that nurturer. We have to learn how to nurture ourselves and to bring ourselves up again. We have, you know what I mean? And that's why it's so important to realize that your wounded inner child does not have to stay wounded. That inner child is looking for love and comfort and nurturing, right? And I realized that because I knew that I had this inner child on the inside of me that was just raging and screaming and so hurt, and really mad. Like this inner child was just angry, you know what I mean? And on the outside, I could laugh and have a great time, and life was good, it's my adult life, right, because I choose what I do. And so I pretty much have, some fun times, and I enjoy life. And the thing is inside of me was this screaming, raging, angry, and really, really hurt child, right? And that's what I had to get in touch with, I had to allow her to be comforted, right? So in order to do that, I had to do that myself by reassuring myself, no, it's okay. It's okay to feel these feelings. It's okay, and really walk through it. And that's the whole issue. And a lot of times if you can't do that on your own, then you need to get a counselor or a therapist, or someone, a group support. So if you're having a hard time, group support is just awesome. I like online group support because, there's lots of people that go on anonymously because they don't want people to know their real names and for many reasons, right? And so, if you're not comfortable really talking about who you really are, you can still talk to people about your situation, and they will be there for you. You know what I mean? And because they're in the same position, they're trying to heal and trying to walk through their journey. And there's the child abuse survivors, adult survivors group, and that's a good one. And there's all kinds. I mean, there's just so many, right? If you start looking around, the ASCA has online group support, right? Adult survivors of child abuse. And if you start looking around at adult survivors of child abuse, you'll see that there's so many out there, online groups that you can get involved with, and you don't even have to tell your real name. You can just go on anonymously. And so another thing that we can do is write our thoughts down, focusing on how you would like to feel and what you can do to get yourself there. And that's so important, right? We have to know where we're going in this world, you know what I mean? And we have to make the choices. We have to make those choices. And sometimes just making them in your head, walking around while you're at the grocery store, they don't stick in there, right? So it's a good idea to sit down and write this stuff down. I know that I do a lot of that because I know I'll forget. I'll get busy and I'll forget what I was even thinking about, and I'll be, off in about 100 directions all at once, and then I'll lose my train of thought. And so that's why it's so important to write this stuff down, what we want out of life and how we're going to get it. It's our plan. We have to have a plan. Otherwise, life will just kind of come at you and come, right by you. And you don't want that to happen, right? That's a real big waste of time. And not only that, but it sets you up for not knowing what you really want, and you could end up being re-victimized. I think that's why I made it a very clear decision to make sure I wrote down what I wanted to do and what type of life I wanted to have. And you know what I mean? It's so important to do this sort of stuff, right? So we'll continue on with that list there tomorrow morning, same time, same place. We've got about a minute left. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, volunteer position. I am so happy to be, let me tell you. Check out our website, Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. It's www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. And there's all kinds of great information on there. And as a survivor, I really like that website. It's such a tribute and such an honor to those who have fallen and whose lives were taken, children who did not survive. And it's such a tribute to those who did survive as well, like us. And they are all about education, prevention, and awareness, primary prevention, which is the number one way to stop child abuse, because it stops child abuse before it happens. I hope that you will take a look at that website. Everybody have a great day. If you need something, get a hold of me on blogtalkradio.com or Facebook, and I'll just keep you all in my heart and hope that you're all well and have a good day and have a good rest of your week and everything. I'll be on, tonight with my own show at 9:30. Child abuse prevention and human rights abuse prevention is up to us at 9:30 Mountain Standard Time for half an hour. So you guys take care and just have yourselves a great day. And remember, check out these coping lists at http www.irvingstudios.com. You can get those coping lists for yourself, adult survivor coping lists. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.